Welcome back to Advanced Sales Training. Today we are going to cover the A in the LP Mama framework. That is the first A, and that stands for agent. Now remember, we left you with motivation. Motivation being the M in the LP Mama framework, the straight line persuasion for the real estate professional, and the M being the most important of all of the steps because we are getting down to someone's motivation. The why, the reason, the emotion behind the purchase, and you've got to get that. If you don't get that, you have not qualified. You have not earned the right to move on to the next step of the process. Okay, now you have that person's why. If you can hold it up, observe it, discuss it, talk about it, make sure it's deep, 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 something that really is driving this move. Now I know, let me just make a quick note on this, a slight caveat. Sometimes when you have a high D on the disc profile, now by the way, this presupposes that you have studied and you know the disc profile and you're able to identify which disc profile you're speaking about. Now I shared this with you early on in one of the other segments, but let me just talk about it again here. Because if you're dealing with a high D, for example, this is someone who's bottom line oriented, they want to get down to brass tacks. Time is money. So you can't get as far with them usually, but guess what? They still have a reason. Just nail it. Nail that reason. If it's money, then go with money. If it's time, time is money, baby. Talk about that too. You see, you can connect with high D's as much as you can high C's. It's just in a different way. I've had so many agents that say, oh, he was a high D and couldn't get to us. Why? You know what that is? That's an excuse. Because if we know how to mirror and match them, we're speaking their language. They still have a reason. Just find out what it is. What's important to you about that? Oh, you want to save money, you want to make money, you want to save time, you want to see all that stuff? Great. So it sounds like that you're interested in saving time. Awesome. Let's move on to the next thing now. You got it, right? By the way, what ultimately would that do for you then when you save time? Then maybe they'll go there with you. Maybe not. Maybe they'll save time. Super duper. Label it. Move on. Now we're on to the A. This is easy. Agent. What we're trying to do here, what our goal is we are identifying if they have an obligation with another real estate professional or if they have a propensity towards working with an agent or not. Because by the way, if this is someone who has no plans on working with an agent, this is where this one will come out. You just got to know what's at stake here. You have to know what type of buyer you're working with. And so here's how it goes. You move on from motivation. You simply ask, I'm just curious, have you been working with somebody, or what's been your way of looking at properties? You know, you kind of ask that up in the motivation section again, but hey, are you working with an agent or are you going at it on your own? Something like that. There's really not like a specific, you don't have to nail the exact words, just understand the essence of it. Hey, have you been working with an agent, or are you obligated to an agent? Something like that. Don't use the word contract here. Don't use the word contract. Stay away from contract. It's a swear word in this entire script. We don't talk about contracts, we talk about obligate, or we talk about moving forward together, things like that. Okay, so simply ask the question. Now, at this point, they're going to let you know, oh, no, we're not going to use an agent. Oh, when you say you're not going to use an agent, tell me more about that. Again, we're back to where we were before. Tell me more. Asking them to expand. Or if they say, yeah, we're working with an agent, and this is a friend of mine. Oh, okay, so it sounds like you're working with somebody. Are you working in a committed situation, or what does that look like for you? They'll say, no, we didn't sign anything. They'll typically be the ones to bring up contract if one exists or doesn't exist, because they'll know most of the time. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll say, you know, we were working with somebody, but you know, I don't remember if we signed anything or not. You see that? So then they're going to be a little bit unsure about that. So then ask them further. Well, do you remember sitting down and, by the way, did you write an offer with that agent? If they say yes, then they likely signed a buyer representation agreement, and likely that date on there was further along, or a longer time frame than just that day. More often than not, it's a 6-month agreement. So when you know that, if they're working with an agent, then perhaps ask them to just dig a little bit further. You know, I don't want to step on anybody's toes. In fact, I'm legally obligated to not do that. So in this situation, I'm just curious, how are things working out? You know, are you happy? Are you unhappy? So dig a little bit more on how their experience is going, and simply just stay neutral here. You can't steal a buyer away who's under contract, and you wouldn't want that done to you either. So it's beyond the legality of it, but it's also just the right thing to do and right thing not to do. So just ask, how are things going? Hey, by the way, I'm here to help you out, and let me know if there's anything I can do. But you really, if they're with an agent and they have a contract, just ask them if they happen to know if that's something that they signed or not. Just kind of get that general idea. Let's just say, for example, for the case. For this case, that they didn't sign anything and they're not working with anybody, well, then you just move on to the next. Okay, great. Now you just acknowledge it. Okay, super. You don't want to belabor this one. You don't want to stay too long on it because it's just a finding out if they're working with somebody. Then you move on to the next step. Okay, so that's the end of agent. Now, again, as with every one of these videos, I will point out a few steps below. The path to agreement with Bob Proctor, that link is below. You're also going to have an opportunity if you want to know more about the sales training process. There's plenty of links below. And finally, if you are thinking about getting into real estate and you don't know which direction to go, which is a pretty usual situation, click below. I've given you a link where you can apply to Yoder Real Estate and just start the interview process. We can have a casual conversation or over coffee or on the phone. And secondly, if you are a licensed agent, whether you've been in the business for 1 year or 5 years, whatever the case may be, if you're not getting solid sales training, solid meaning the things we're covering here, you're not getting the best training that you can have. This game is changing, folks. Real estate is changing. In the next 5 years, the agents that remain, by the way, the agent population will be reducing drastically. So the question is, do you want to be in the group that remains, or do you want to be in the group that goes away like in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12? I think you know the answer to that. So your capacity to win big, to not only survive, but thrive over the next decade of real estate is going to be based on your ability to work within the law of compensation, which states that our compensation will always be based on 3 factors. Number 1, the need for what we do. Number 2, how good are we at our craft? Are you so good at what you do that people can't take their eyes off of you? If not, you're violating the second rule of the law of compensation. And number 3 is automatically taken care of if you nail number 2, by the way, which is how difficult it is to replace you. Consider that. The need for what you do. Let's argue that there's a need for the real estate professional. I will argue that there's not a need for mediocre real estate professionals or those that are doing it part-time or dabbling in it. There just isn't. There just isn't. The marketplace doesn't need part-time agents. There, I said it. Okay? They need professional fiduciaries, those that go to bat for them, those that look out for them, those that are knowledgeable about the marketplace, those that sell a lot of homes, because the more you sell, the better you get, right? And the better it gets, the better it gets, the better you get, the better you get. Okay, number 1. Number 2, how good are you at this? How do you get good at something? How do you get better? How do you master your craft? Well, mastery is 10,000 hours. So consider that. If you're only selling 5 or 10 homes a year, you're not doing enough to get good at it. There's so many things to navigate through. How can you expertly guide somebody if you haven't expertly guided somebody else before? So consider that. You have to continue to do this. You have to master your craft. Read. Become the local economist of choice. Practice your scripts. Practice them every single day. Overcoming objections. So good at what you do that people cannot take their eyes off of you. And number 3, how difficult it is to replace you. This is an interesting one because number 2 takes care of number 3. But how do you know if you're difficult to replace? Well, usually number 2 is a sure sign. How are you doing in that area? And just know this, that if you were to exit yourself, it's a good exercise to go through, just to get real. Remove yourself from the real estate industry. Just walk out the door, hang your license up. If there's not a ripple effect, if there's nothing that changed, if the marketplace hasn't been negatively impacted, if the vacuum is filled up, and by the way, more often than not it does, the vacuum fills right up, and the marketplace isn't negatively impacted, your brokerage doesn't even, they're like, like that, right? Then you violated number 3 as well. You've actually probably violated all 3 of those in the law of compensation. Need for what you do, how good are you at it, and how difficult it is to replace you. Now consider number 2, so good that people can't take their eyes off you. Number 3, when you leave, there's a ripple effect. Your broker's like, please don't go, right? Please don't go. We're going to have X less sales this month as a result of that. Nail number 2, and number 3 takes care of itself. Okay, folks, this is what I'm talking about. Sales training that really has an impact. Sales, technology, and database. These 3 things are going to be the game changers for the next decade in real estate. If you want to know more about that, stay tuned. Or hit the this playlist below. Save this one, okay? And like the video if you find value in it. And finally, share it with someone else. The best gift that we can give to others is to learn something and share it with them. Don't just hold it to yourself, okay? We'll see you next time with the next step in the LP Mama framework. And this is another episode of Advanced Sales Training. We'll see you soon.